Brothers, sisters, more and more people are waking up to the nature of the old gods, how they are the source in multiple forms within our material universe and in the multiverse that is Yggdrasil. On planet Earth, we are experiencing the zipping up of Yggdrasil. It basically has cycles like trees do in our world, where it's all the connections unzip and then zip back up. Right now we are seeing the connections being brought back together along Yggdrasil, making it whole once more, and people are starting to be drawn to the many forms that the source takes. Now, there are things that we must be careful of in the coming centuries. Now, what we must understand is that the gods, the old gods of our Northern European ancestors, and gods from most so-called pantheons, but really they're all valid in and of themselves. Different spiritual systems all being valid in and of themselves, acknowledging different parts of the whole. But what we must be careful of with Northern European gods especially is that we've attached a lot of things to them in the past that has actually disabled our ability to connect with them. The gods of our Northern European ancestors are not concerned with nations. They're barely concerned with blood, with bloodlines. But they are definitely not concerned with nations. A lot of the time we hear white nationalists saying a white national state should be founded, or let's just have our own white isolated community. And to them I would say the gods are not concerned with the boundaries around cities, around towns, around states, around villages, around countries. The gods acknowledge those who try to reach them, whether we are pockets, whether they are the ones that directly descend from them completely. Anyone who looks up to the gods may be recognized. It is about effort, internal effort, not external division. Nationalism is waning in this century and in the 1800s to a certain degree, but I'm not just talking about racial nationalism. I'm talking about the idea of countries being separate groups of people. We're starting to see that spiritual ties are being made not only between different spiritual people, but between different pantheons themselves and different spirits themselves. We're starting to see how the gods and the spirits communicate with one another and how they always communicated with one another. We just didn't see it. If this seems incredibly vague, it is because this is a vast subject and this is a brief video, but Vodou is starting to be understood for what it is, a perfectly valid spiritual system. Asatru, we are reclaiming that, showing that the old gods weren't something that just basic, simple tribal people believed in. They're actually part of a multi-dimensional power system that allows the multiverse to exist in a state of balance. We can participate in that balance. We can serve the gods, and the gods will bless us in return. We can offer our time, our certain aspects of our spiritual life to devoting ourselves to the gods. And the more we sacrifice, the more we find we are attuned to those higher dimensions than the material plane. Sacrificing our time, sacrificing our efforts, sacrificing our inner attunement, deciding to go towards the old gods. This allows us to reach higher and higher branches of Yggdrasil. Midgard is kind of in between, and there's many dimensions around us. But we have to realize that in order to reach the higher dimensions, we must attune ourselves with those who are fathers and mothers of those dimensions. And if we want to attune ourselves to the lower dimensions, we must try to communicate and strike deals, trade, or devote ourselves to those of lower dimensions. I don't want to go to lower dimensions, but if you do, then you have to attune yourself in that way. If you want to go to higher, you must attune yourself to the higher. Now, I am a follower of Odin, and Odin has shown me that what we are concerned with as human beings is very small compared to the cosmic order, compared to the cosmic destination that the multiverse Yggdrasil is going towards, is growing towards. our nations here, our politics, our obsessions with ethnicity, and our obsessions with the culture we're born into, the traditions that we hold so dear. I'm talking about in recent times. The older traditions are far more open, far more personally spiritual and connecting to the gods, oneself to the gods. But the gods are not concerned with the matters that we are so attached to here. Our ancestors knew that to reach the gods, one must work away from materialism, obsessing over that which is very concrete here, and instead working towards hamingja, earned luck, working towards honor, finding uros, the primordial strength within us, to ascend along our spiritual path, tewas, and to offer to the gods, therefore attuning ourselves to higher dimensions, ansus. But what we need to do is realize that our connection to the gods starts within. It's not an external practice solely. Our connection to the gods is a working within. It's not about waving certain flags, drawing certain lines, saying those are them and we are different. It's about finding that piece of yourself, the white within you, the spirit within you, and finding its place along Yggdrasil, and promoting that place of your spirit so that it may reach the highest echelons of who we are and who we can become, what our true potential is. You have to work. It's not all about living up to the gods. This is not one of those Abrahamic traditions that leave it all up to God and God's mercy. You must work. You must fight. But the true fight begins within. It's not about fighting without. You can fight without, and you must a lot of the time, but the true fight begins within because fear and weakness is within. It's not something that's inflicted upon you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you attune yourself to the Asia, and I hope you find your way up the world tree Yggdrasil to the highest peak. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Be careful, but be strong.